Near the end of the 19th century, men and women's roles became more sharply defined than at any time in history. The changing nature of women's lives helped create the circumstances that allowed them to begin to act politically, on their own behalf and for others. In 1883, a young woman from Lakeport, Ontario, who described herself as being of full age, would begin her remarkable career in the service of Her Majesty's Royal Mail when she applied for the post of assistant to the postmaster of Colborne, Ontario. As a woman who was the longest-serving postmistress in the history of Canada Post, Eliza Jane Pagenton, Miss EJ as most people called her, knew something about letters. She devoted her life to the mail, sorting it, delivering it, guarding it, but above all, writing it. Letters. Lots and lots of letters, becoming one of the most illustrious and beloved village citizens. Prior to rural mail delivery, many Canadians living outside major cities and towns had little communication with the outside world. Originally known as Royal Mail Canada, founded in 1867, and now Canada Post, Miss EJ served with distinction for more than 70 years. Though Eliza's birth date was recorded as 1862, she gave her age in the censuses of 1901 and 1911 as 36 and 46 years, which would suggest she was only 18 when she left Lakeport. She began writing to Canadian soldiers in faraway Africa during the Boer War. She was not that much older than those first soldiers, but her motherly concern touched those young men as it did those in the Great War, the Second World War, and the Korean conflict.
Dear Miss Pagenton, the weather here is fine, almost like a Canadian fall, with very little rain and clear, crisp nights. The boys say much too crisp when they turn out each morning at 8 in shorts for PT, but they can take it and are waiting as patiently as they can for the time when they will be called on to give their best, and their best will be a terrific shock to somebody, because they are at the peak of fighting fitness, keen, alert, and fully trained. Lieutenant Jack C. Armstrong, Canadian Army Overseas.
Dear Miss Paddington, I'm with the Black Watch. They had a pretty grim battle a month ago, so I came up as reinforcement. The German is not so fanatical. One minute he wants to kill you, and then when you get near him, he surrenders and is so polite. Sorry I can't tell you in print what I think of him. Captain Dan Dudley, Canadian Army Overseas.
Colborne is sure doing well with her victory loan, but if they could see the way these English people have taken it, they would never begrudge a cent they have given. It is not the rich man who has taken the punishment over here, it is the working man, but still they carry on and smile. Signalman Ted Bugg, Canadian Army, Overseas.
No matter the bravado and adventuring spirit with which they sailed off to war, Miss EJ knew how those lads missed home once they were overseas. And so, she wrote of crammy goings-on, both serious and trivial, and included local newspapers and magazines. Getting news from home made them feel that the world they knew in Canada still existed and would be there when they returned.
It's been a long, hard road that we've come. First the Normandy beaches and D-Day, then France, Belgium, Walcheren Island and the Scheldt Estuary, and now the flooded land of Holland. There have been some mighty grim times when your life meant nothing, but the guiding light has always brought us through the darkest spots. I'm positive the prayers of my loved ones at home have pulled me through unharmed. Private J.A. Coyle, Canadian Army Overseas.
Dear Miss Pagenton, during my stay in Colborne, I've heard of your kind deeds toward the boys in the last war, in keeping in actual contact with them all, but never once did I dream you would continue doing the same good work to us this time. You really cannot realize what comfort we get out of those weekly bundles as we gather round and read the local news. It's almost like being back in good old Colborne once more, and when we finish our mission, you can rest assured we will all end up back in that friendly little village. In closing, Miss Pagenton, I think I can safely say for the rest of the boys, and myself, that we each and every one thank you right from the bottom of our hearts and think you're swell. Private Cecil Burley, Canadian Army Overseas.
I came through one of those fierce battles. Likely you will read about it. We went into the trenches at 12:30 midnight to make this big drive. Fritz was shelling us very heavy and we lost a good many of our company. All at once word came to fix the bayonets. We all knew what that meant. Private George Hatch, Canadian Expeditionary Force.
Having neither husband nor children of her own, her work at the Sunday school filled a part of her life that the post office could not. Charged with the spiritual education of the boys and young men of the Methodist congregation for over 50 years, she continued that spiritual support as they went off to war, each generation in its turn. Her boys, though she had taught for years in Sunday school and Bible study class, were the lucky recipients of untold numbers of missives from good old Colborne via the pen of Miss E.J. Pagenton. They never forgot the kindness and thoughtfulness that was behind those letters.
Dear Miss Pagenton, I'm glad to know that you're still teaching. It has been a number of years since I had the pleasure of attending your class, but my thoughts frequently go back to the classroom in the corner. I guess that an updated address book of all your class members would include a good many countries now. Gerald Beavis, RCAF.
Dear Miss Pagenton, no matter how far or how near we roam from our native land, our heartstrings draw our minds homeward. There is a tie that binds us to that place. Nobody but those that receive your bundles of papers know how much they mean to us. Here's hoping Colborne's Florence Nightingale may have yet perfect health and strength for years to come. Love, Corporal Arthur N. Smith.
How time flies. It just seemed like yesterday when we were children going to school. Today we are grown up to be men before our time. Yes, war certainly does make a lot of changes. I have come over here to England to be with the rest of the boys. The people here are very kind to us. They do anything for you. The country is very beautiful, and there are many a picturesque scene almost anywhere you look. I say goodbye, or a cheerio as they say in this country. One of your boys, Gunner Lawrence Henderson, Canadian Army Overseas.
In Canada and overseas, the boys still got their letters from home with newspapers and magazines included. Sometimes the latter were sent anonymously, but their source was never in doubt to her boys. We have to imagine what Miss E.J. wrote to her boys, as none of the letters survive. But despite being heavily censored, their letters to her surely reflect their state of being and mind as they read those letters from Colborne.
I think by the other soldiers' letters, you can easily see how much those papers from the old hometown are appreciated by us over here. Last night, I received 2 bundles of papers from you, so I spent 2 happy hours reading about people I used to know. I guess I read everything, even the classified sections. Oh, I have to go on duty, Miss Pagenton, so I'll just say cheerio and thanks a million for what you're doing for us. Private Arlie Stickle, Canadian Army Overseas.
You know, it gets quite lonesome here at times. We have a fine group of boys here, and they're here to do their part. I have heard Mother speaking of you doing your part for the boys in the last war, and as far as I can tell, you're doing a swell job, and see that you're still carrying on with the boys in this war. As the old saying goes, battles come and battles go, but we go on forever. Gunner Keith Webb, Canadian Army Overseas.
Several letters of commendation from Chief Postal Inspectors, a long service medal from the Postmaster General, a coronation medal from Queen Elizabeth. These recognitions came to Miss E.J. along with many others over her distinguished career. Her devotion to duty clearly impressed her employers over her 70-plus years of service. She was never forgotten by the 374 young men she taught at Sunday school, her boys. She presented an honor roll to the Methodist, later United Church, listing those who served king and country. In 1946, the Legion hosted a banquet to honor veterans, and Miss E.J. was presented with flowers and a victory bond from those veterans. There was a letter of appreciation and commendation from Prime Minister Mackenzie King. In 1953, Miss E.J. Pagenton led the Armistice Day Parade, no doubt followed by many of her boys, some now elderly and unwell, but all with a connection to the 92-year-old lady marching up front. When her years ended in 1961 at age 99, there was no headstone at her grave. This sad state was remedied in 1970 when a public collection was taken to properly mark her final resting place in Lakeport Cemetery. A substantial monument is inscribed. Jobs, employees, employers, letters, parcels, money orders, these came and went. None of that is mentioned on her headstone. The words chiseled into the stone above Miss E.J.'s spot in this earth reflect what was really important to the stalwart of Crammy Township, who touched so many lives with her one long life.